Well, welcome thus far, everybody that's joined already. We really appreciate you being here today for the Making XOG Friendly webinar with IT-ROI Solutions. My name is Christopher Claunch, and I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing. And from what I saw, many of you have already been on this, which is one of our many in the series of Making PPM Simpler, really hands-on webinar discussions where we try to help you better understand how to make your PPM simpler. And today we're fortunate enough to have our founder and president, Federico Pena, who many of you know from over the years, and really one of the foremost experts in enterprise project and portfolio management and integrations across the board in PPM today. So it's always exciting when Federico gets to jump in and get technical with you guys. And one of the things that we'll ask today while Federico is presenting is that you get in and get involved as quickly as possible, because what Federico wants to do is work with you on what may be some of the challenges that face you utilizing the XOG Bridge if you're already using it, or if you're new to the XOG Bridge, how to get started and get over some of those initial humps. And so just a little background, as it looks like there's still some people that are trickling in here. Federico and the rest of us founded IT-ROI with the notion of making PPM simpler. Enterprise PPM is a beast. And so is XOG for that matter. But it's also very powerful. Enterprise PPM can be utilized across the enterprise, outside of IT, in many different ways. And some of the things that Federico is going to show today is the power of the XOG utility and some ways to tame what I would consider to be sort of a beast. And so that's where I guess the title of today's webinar, Making XOG Friendlier so that it can assist you. So this is a little bit of housekeeping, as it looks like we've got room for just a few more people to kind of trickle in late. But in the GoToWebinar console on the right-hand side of your screen, if you will type your questions in as Federico is presenting, what he will do is he sees those questions come in. He'll stop at a good pausation session during his presentation, and he'll answer those questions right on the spot. And if he goes for a long period of time and we begin to stack some questions up, I'll stop him and have him go ahead and address those. But for the most part, he'll address them right on the fly. And if you happen to ask him a question about a challenge you're having, he may even be able to go in at the end and pull up his screen and actually walk through it with you. So really, I know that what I have to say is probably the least compelling part of today's presentation and webinar. And like I said, it looks like we have a pretty good sized amount of people in so far, Federico, so I was wondering if you're ready to take it over. I'll just put the webinar topics and the technical stuff to you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for attending. As Christopher mentioned, today's topics are going to be based around XOG, but we're going to be focusing a lot more around data extractions for XOG. So how can we actually utilize the Query API to extract data directly from XOG? And now, Christopher, I know that you made me presenter, but can you keep the PowerPoint up until, until I get through the PowerPoint, and then I'll get into the demo?
You bet.
So as I mentioned, we're going to be focusing on the Query API. So what are we going to be focusing? We're going to be focusing on what is the Query API, how to build NSQLs, how to build parameters into NSQL so you can utilize that, and then how to utilize filters within that NSQL to be able to extract and filter the data that you want to extract. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to cover our XOG and Query Bridge. So the XOG and Query Bridge is a free tool that we provide for end users that basically put a GUI front end on XOG for you. So for those of you that have not registered into it, please feel free to go to xogbridge.itroisolutions.com, register an account, and then you can take full advantage and see everything that I'm going to be covering directly. And then, if you have any questions as I'm going through all of this, please feel free to ask anything any challenges, as Christopher said, anything that's really getting you stuck with inside of Zog to be able to get me to at least provide you some feedback or show you how we can utilize this tool to make your life a little simpler. And next slide. All right, so we're gonna start off by learning how to use the query API. I think it's not a really well documented feature within inside of CA PPM, but what we're going to show you is how we can build NSQL. So the query API basically allows you to extract data from an NSQL and then allows you to pass filters directly to an NSQL. So I'm going to show you what the code looks like, so what the XML looks like as a read, and then I'm going to show you how to utilize the query bridge to be able to build these parameters in place. So you don't actually have to really know the nitty-gritty of the XML. And let's move to the next one. All right, so how to perform data extracts directly from an NSQL. And I think most people that are going to benefit from this are the people that are on demand. Okay, we're going to show you how you can do data extracts so you no longer need to have a database connection directly into your CA PPM toolset. So what that means is you're now going to be able to extract data for end users, schedule these data extracts, or provide feeds to your end users without actually having a VPN into that data set. No matter what, there is a requirement in understanding what the data set looks like inside of Clarity. So what the data model looks like, meaning if you need to write a new query, you will have to at least understand the data model. You don't necessarily have to understand how to write the NSQL. We're going to cover that in a little bit on how to do dynamic SQL to NSQL converters. But this is going to give your organization the ability to manage data extracts for multiple different reasons, whether you, like I said, you need it for an end user or you have a limitation on export to a portlet and you want to bring out more data than what the GUI, the Clarity GUI allows you to do. We're going to show you how to do that and how to export it to Excel or how to send it to an FTP. And let's go to the next slide. One of the last things we're going to cover is dynamic SQL to NSQL converter. So we're going to, the tool set that we're going to be using, which is the Zog and Query Bridge, allows you to write SQL and then it will dynamically convert it to NSQL for you. So what that means is you don't necessarily need to know all of the syntax around NSQLs. Obviously, we're going to be focusing on data extracts, meaning this isn't going to be focused on multi-dimensional views. So it isn't necessarily designed to build complex NSQLs, which have more than one dimension. I'm not necessarily sure if I'm even going to be able to get into covering that part. But it's going to be how to build basic NSQLs and how to write your code so you don't necessarily have to put all of your SQL statements into your NSQL, meaning there's a lot of parameters that can be used inside of NSQL that make it available for you to write the same query for Oracle or SQL Server. So there's a lot of conversions that Clarity will do in flight. So I'm going to show you how to manage that within inside of your NSQLs. I'm going to get you, Christopher, to make me presenter so I can start going over a quick overview.
All righty.
All right. First, I'm hoping that everyone can see my my screen. All right. What I'm going to start off with is a basic overview of the Zog Bridge. Okay. in the home page, what do we have? We've got your URL section. Okay, what your URL section contains is the Clarity URLs that you will be connecting to. And we're saying Clarity URLs, there are other tool sets that you will be able to connect to, but in this case we're going to be focusing on CA PPM. Okay, so this is handy, especially if you're a consultant and you're traveling and you're doing, 10 different clients. You might have, 10 or 20 or 30 different URLs that you want to connect to, and you want to just keep these URLs saved at a particular location. So from here, you can have all of the URLs that you usually connect to, or you go to the URL manager where you can manage, add, or remove URLs from your environment. Okay. If we go back to the home section, we've got the other section is your usage statistics. So this will show you how you're using your Zog, what number of requests have been successful, what has failed, and this provides you an easy way to come back and look and troubleshoot your particular Zog errors that you're having. And up at the top, we've got the SQL tool, which is what we're going to be focusing mainly on. The Zog tool, okay, and the Zog tool is used for either single Zogs that you can copy paste XML into a window and run, like in the previous Zog.client that was available in version 13X, and a desktop version. We're not going to be doing any part of the demo on the desktop version, but the desktop version basically provides those two functionalities in a tool that allows you to maintain all of the data locally on your laptop. Okay. Although we are going to be phasing out the desktop version, as we will be providing clients, specifically clients that are on-premise or a little bit uptight of having data go through a third-party server, we are going to be providing this web version for end clients to use, and they'll be able to install it locally as needed. Okay. So I'm going to go through and cover the rest of these links down here so we can just get a quick overview. So I'm going to start off with the execute query. All right. And I'm going to remove my credentials from here. All right. So the first thing when you click on execute queries, what it asks you for is the Clarity URL that you want to connect to. So I'm going to look for the URL that I want to connect to here, and I'm going to say I want to connect to this one. And you notice that you can't really do anything until you validate. Okay. What this means is it isn't going to let you write any SQL or run existing SQLs until it knows what environment that you want to connect to. And we're going to cover the reasons of why, okay? The next link that we've got is the Zog requests, okay? So we have a single Zog request, which is basically, as I mentioned before, the same as the Zog.client that was available through Clarity before, or we have the ability to do bulk requests. So the bulk request is really handy because you can take a bunch of folders with a bunch of XML files, you zip them up, and it'll go through and process all of those files one at a time in a consecutive order. So you can see here, for example, I uploaded a zip file that contained 777 files. Okay, so this gives you the ability to prepare all your XML files and then zip them up and then have this tool load them automatically for you. Now we've got the next component is an XSLT component. We're not going to get heavily into XSLT, but this is basically a way to test your XSLT to make sure that it's good. Now for those of you that don't necessarily know what XSLT means, it's a good way, an easy way to transform your XML. It's very handy, for example, when you're doing object reads, and you pull out this file that contains 16 megs of noise and you really only need about 30 kilobytes. XSLT allows you to strip off all of the other noise to make sure that when you do your load and you push that load back in, it goes in smoothly. Okay. The next component that we've got is what's called the data loader. Now the data loader is probably the most common feature that people use our tool set for, which allows you to map Excel files directly into Zog. So it provides a GUI that allows you to map Excel files into Zog. And we did a webinar about this a few months back, and we might be able to cover a little bit of this component during this webinar if we've got some time. Okay. Now the next few links are, your CA PPM URLs, your licenses and your URLs. So the license component, these are more admin tools that you guys probably won't see, but this is mainly used for the desktop version. Okay. And the desktop version requires a license, so it's based off your MAC address and your host name. Okay. And down here, we've got two important components, which are the send request or report a button. We want to try and make this tool as useful as we can for everybody, but for that, we require feedback. So if you're running some type of API call and you're running into some issue, we would love to hear what that issue is so we can fix it. The other thing is, if you have an enhancement request, you need it to do something that it doesn't currently do, I would love to hear what it is so we can make this tool better for everybody. Okay? So we definitely would like to hear back from all of you guys. Okay? And then we've got the help and support section. So all of our products are documented on the webpage called kb.itroisolutions.com. Okay? And in here you can get into the user guide, and it's got an introduction of the query bridge. It's got video tutorials for everything, as well as a very well documented component on how to use all of the components of the XOG Bridge. Okay? Now, a new component that we've added since we last did the demo is what's called the Integration Manager. Okay? And the reason we're going to bring in the Integration Manager into this is because once we do a data extract, we're going to come into the integration section. We're going to show you how you can actually configure that to either send it to an FTP or send it to an email, or you can schedule it, right? So now you can take your data extracts and you can schedule these data extracts. So, if you now need to do an integration into or out of Clarity, then you can now do it directly from here. So you first select your query, then you do your data extract, and then you come here and you say, well, now I want to integrate that so it sends it on a weekly, daily, monthly, whatever basis to somebody. So and that's especially handy for a lot of users that do a lot of data analytics that want to see, large data sets within inside of Excel, right? And the reason being is, Excel, since everyone knows Excel, it's easy to slice and dice that data. All right. So now that I've covered these particular tools, I'm going to come back into the query bridge, and I'm going to go specifically into the execute a query section. Okay? So I'm going to start off by saying run an existing NSQL. So when I select run an existing NSQL, it asks for the available queries. Now remember, this already knows that it is connected to this environment with this user. So you have to make sure that this particular user has the XOG admin rights, right? So the XOG admin allows you to extract data, okay? So that particular user that's logging in here needs to make sure that you've got that right, okay? So once you select your environment as that user, it gives you all of the queries that you have access to see, all right? So for those of you that aren't familiar where this information is located, if you go into Clarity and you go into the administration section, okay, you've got a query section, okay? This basically provides you all of the NSQLs. So this is what your company has designed for you for. So anytime you have a portlet or anything, these are what become available for you to visualize, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a particular query here, and I'm going to grab one for projects because I seem to have an example here of some project data. So I'm going to say I want this query, okay? So the first thing it does is as soon as you click on this particular query, okay, you get prompted for parameters, okay? So if your NSQL has parameters built into it, it allows you to select them, or filters, okay? So the query API allows you to filter by any attribute. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and show what this API call looks like. All right. So let's say you wanted to use the command prompt query. Okay. Basically, this is the XML that you need to be able to read out the project's data. Okay. And if so, in this case, I would want to select out this ID. So the ID out projects all 1.0. So I would put that as my code. Okay. So this is basically going to do the exact same thing as what we're doing here. So if you were to run this via your XOG client, it's going to actually go and run that query and extract that data for you. Okay. Now, when it populates that data, it's going to populate that data within inside of your of an XML file. So it's going to bring back the data as an XML file. Okay. Now, the next piece is we want to know what the filters are for these. Okay. So what is available for you to filter by from within inside of a query? So I'm going to come back to here. All right. So if you wanted to utilize filters, okay, this is what my XOG call is, and within inside of that XOG call, I have different options for my filtering. Okay, so this one here. So obviously my attribute in this case is called INV code. Okay, this is the value that I want to pass as a filter. Okay, so in this case I'm going to leave it blank, and this is closing. So this one here is an equals. Okay. So this is looking for an exact match, okay? Now, in this case here, we have a from and a to, so every attribute, you can actually put a range of values, okay? The next one that you can filter by for every attribute is an in, okay? So an in basically is expecting a set of comma separated values, like this, okay? And the last one is a wildcard. So let's say my project was called demo. I could put DE, okay? There's no need for the asterisk, okay? It already, basically, this is the equivalent of doing this. So anytime you have a wildcard, okay, it's basically expecting the starting characters of the word that you want to search by, okay? So all of these filters are out-of-the-box filtering that's available for all of your projects. Okay. And the next possible way to do it is what we call parameters. Okay. Now I'm going to get a little bit into NSQL constructs here for a second. Okay. Where I'm going to show you what a parameter looks like. Okay. In this case here, we're using parameters for language codes, but down here, okay, I am using a parameter for a particular value, okay, and it's a parameter of type string, okay. So whenever you write parameters into your NSQL, then you could pass them to your query API as additional filters. So there are major advantages of using parameters over the out-of-the-box filtering. The reason is the out-of-the-box filtering, the way it works is it gets the data set, it brings back the data set. Once it brings all the data set back, then it filters the data and presents you with the data. Meaning you're still doing a large data pull out of your database, okay? And then once you get that data out, then you're shrinking the amount of data to what you need, okay? But your network traffic and everything's increased. When you pass it as parameters, okay, it's done before it does the data, or at the time it's doing the database read. Meaning if it's going to save you a lot of records, and it's going to save you a lot of a lot of database performance because it's going to bring back a smaller data set. Okay? So that's what these two values are for. Okay? The parameters, and up here, basically anything that is inside of your selects are basically what become part of your filters. So you remember we were talking about the first attribute. The first attribute was called INV_code, which was this one here, right? So like I said, these get passed after the data has been pulled, and parameters get passed before the data gets pulled. So very, very handy.
Hey, Federico, this is Christopher.
Yes,
I have a
Christopher.
question. For me especially, and some of the people that have just started out with the XOG tool, in the documentation site for the XQ, for the XOG Query Bridge, is there a step-by-step instructions on how you build and execute like you just showed, in case somebody wants to go back and reference that? I know that this is going to be available in the form of a recording. After the show, we'll get that sent out to everybody, but is there a place where somebody can go for that? That was the question.
Yeah, I mean, on the documentation, there's an area where it shows you how to run a query. But as far as writing the query, so getting this into Clarity, this is something that is documented by CA. Okay.
Okay.
So you need to understand how to write these queries first. Okay. Like I said, you don't necessarily need to know this syntax because we're going to cover how to utilize the query bridge as an automatic converter. So how it converts regular SQL into this. But to be able to get this the actual data structure, then yes, you would need to follow CA's documentation for that.
Okay.
Like I said, what we provide is once your query's been written, how you can pull it out from here, how you can add parameters, okay, or add filters. Okay, so in this case here, I've got my particular project or my particular query that I want to run. I now just literally click on Run Query. Okay, so what this is going to do. This query does not return results. Oh, let me try a different query. Let me try to see if this particular one has. Okay. So here I've done that particular pull, and you can see that I've got all of my records are displayed here. Okay, but this runs real time. So now what I want to do is I want to actually export these to Excel. So I just literally click on them and download this file. So now I've got this particular data pull. Okay, or I could also say, well, you know what? I would like to add a filter where I don't know, financial status equals O. So we can add this and say we're looking for financial status, and this equals O. So now we run the query. So this is how you would limit that particular data set. So you notice in this time I only have 40 records, as opposed to the 280 that I ran on the first time. So this gives you the ability to provide parameters and filtering sections directly into your query, so you can control what data gets passed to each particular user, right? Another common function that people use is within inside of the filter, they put the user parameter for security to make sure that it limits to the data that they're interested in seeing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop for a couple of minutes and see if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask before I go any farther.
So if you have a question to ask, remember that you can just go to the right-hand side of the screen into the GoToWebinar console, go down to the questions, push the plus C, and just enter your question in there. And Federico answered. I did have one from earlier, Federico. Hang on one second, let me pull it up here. Is the there were two things that you mentioned before, the desktop and the web version.
Yeah.
The difference between those two versions of the XB.
All right, so the desktop version is an executable that you run on your client side. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open this particular desktop version. I'm going to download it and open it up in a second here so I can show you what that is all about. The main difference is the desktop version, like I said, it's an executable that runs locally on your machine. Okay, that has pros and cons. One of the cons that it has is, it basically eats up the memory from your machine. So if you need to do large data extracts or large data pulls, then you definitely are going to need a beefy laptop, a beefy machine to make sure that you can fulfill those needs. With the web version, it utilizes the server's memory and the server's resources to be able to execute those. So the web-based version allows you to, I'm going to say, have a wimpier laptop. Okay. The other advantage to the web version is it contains full audit. It saves every single pull that you've done. It saves all your error messages and all of that. As opposed to your desktop version, although it also saves your responses and your requests, it doesn't have a nice, easy navigation path to a report where you can just click on a report and see that.
Okay.
I got another question here. Is the web-based PPM XOG client available at no cost? Yes. We do have quite a few clients that, one of the main issues that clients have had is the problem with the XQ is because as I mentioned before, is because it's an executable. Okay, a lot of clients have their computers locked down. And when your computers are locked down, you might not be able to run an executable directly on your laptop. So we provide this complete web-based interface for clients to install on their local environment. And it also contains the advantage with utilizing the web version as well, which I didn't cover, is the web version contains the data loader, which isn't available for the desktop version.
Okay.
Are there any XOG Bridge examples and documents on the site we can start with? Definitely, if you go to the support XOG and Query Bridge, the support kb.itroi-solutions.com, there's lots of examples that you can start with. Also, if you send an email to our support team with what your request is, they'll be more than happy to help all of you.
Fed, in the, did you see the questions how to use the XOG Bridge for the on-premise Clarity environment?
Yeah, so there is how to use the XOG Bridge for an on-premise Clarity environment. So as I just covered, there's two options that you can use. Okay, option number one is you download the XOG Bridge, which is the desktop version. Okay. Option number two is you contact our support team and we help you get this installed. A lot of clients install this on their dev environment. Because really it doesn't need to live, you don't need three versions. You don't need one living in dev, one in test, one in prod, because you can point to any one of those servers, right? You just need really a holding spot for this. And this runs on a Tomcat server. So like I said, a lot of our clients are deciding to install this locally. And you get a lot of other benefits into running this particular version as opposed to sending the desktop version to all of the clients that actually require that. The next question is, does XOG Bridge work with all Clarity PPM versions? Yeah, I mean, it's just XOG, right? So we utilize the SOAP calls. So yes, SOAP is supported for all objects at the moment with inside of Clarity. So yes, as long as there's an API call for it, all we do is let's say we speed up the process and we automate the process. You don't necessarily have to use the command line utility. I got another one here that says, can we schedule the bulk imports? I'm assuming that you want to import data into Clarity. Yes, definitely we provide that functionality. And once I get into the integration manager piece, I can show how you can do, not only exports but imports, right? Obviously your imports need to come in a format that's expected, right? And generally what we do is we read that data from some type of FTP location or some type of network drive location and feed that directly into Clarity. So we transform it from a CSV to XML, and then it contains, this gives you the ability to do some business rules around it and feed that into Clarity and then report on those particular integrations. And as a matter of fact, let me just see if I can show you an example of what one of these scheduled runs would look like. So I'm gonna get into. So I came into the integration manager and I'm going into the integration section. And let me pick this particular one, allocations, okay? So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on run. So I'm going to just grab some historical data so we can take a look at what this looks like, okay? So in this case here, I've got this particular integration. It's got all of the full details. It's got the log, all of the data that was sent. So I can actually come and take a look at the data that was sent. I can take a look at the log to see what the run was like. So it definitely provides the ability to be able to not only schedule the runs, but it gives you full reporting on what that that data run was like. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to just take a look and see when this was run, 6:14. I'm going to take a look at a dashboard so you can have a better view into this particular data set. So I think we said try this. Let's see. So this is that particular run that was sent, and I'm going to give you more details of what that run was like. So here it shows, when it was loaded, who it was loaded by, what the WSDL user that was used, how many rows were sent, what the log messages look like. So here you can take a look and see what the responses, the request and the responses look like. You can take a look at the actual rows that were pushed in. So we can take a look at all the data that was sent, right? So this is the data that came from the feed. So definitely possible. And this particular integration, okay, if I go back to the integration, I'm just going to cover a little piece here. I'm going to click on this integration, and then I can just go to the schedule section, okay, and schedule that particular integration any way that I want.
And Judith, that was the short answer for your question on the bulk imports. Fred, were you finished with the? Yeah,
I was done with that.
Okay, I'm glad. I just thought there was a question about functionality changes. The version 1.3
Yeah.
that that the earlier versions didn't have, or that 1.0 desktop does not have? What's the delta there?
Oh, wow. We normally send full release notes on every version, and I'm going to just take a quick look and see if we have that here.
The stuff on the blog.
So here are all the versions of what's new in each version. Okay.
Oh.
I can provide this link. So each version actually has what's new in that particular version, what's new on the desktop, what's new on the web version. Just to answer your question quickly, though, we haven't really done a lot of changes into the desktop version. We're not planning on doing a lot of changes into the desktop version because since we are providing this to end users as a free tool, we found that we're having to maintain two different sets of code by maintaining a web and a local version. So this is why we're building everything on the web, and what we're doing is we're providing end users the ability to install this web version on clients' servers. Okay? And that's going to save a lot of grief for end users. We found that, because there's particular functionality that doesn't exist on the desktop version that exists on the web version, we find that you have to go back and forth between the two tool sets. That's causing, it causes confusion between end users. So we're trying to keep it all in a single location. Like I said, if anyone has an interest of getting a copy of the XQ for their local environment, feel free to let us know. Even if you're not necessarily local, you could be on demand, and you're interested in doing that, we also provide it for clients on demand. Like I said, it provides a lot of benefits of having it locally, as we currently don't provide all of this functionality that you see to all of the users that are registered under the XOG Bridge. If you're using our cloud version, you basically have to ask for enhanced functionality for us to be able to provide it to you. We don't give it to just absolutely everyone. All right, I think we have all the questions covered. Christopher, any new questions? We do?
Yeah, it looks like we're all caught up on questions if you want to move to the next segment.
All right. So as I mentioned before, I want to talk about how to dynamically build an end SQL. Okay. So one of the things I've shown here is what the end SQL syntax looks like. This can be tedious for end users, okay, to write. Okay. Most people that are familiar with SQL, they don't necessarily familiar with end SQL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new query. All right, so in this case, I'm going to write a SQL here, and I'm just going to call it AA demo. And the reason I'm going to call it AA demo is so it shows up first in my query list inside of Clarity. And here, I can just do a simple select, right? So I can say select the code name from INV investments, okay? And I run query, okay? What does it do right now? It takes this data, it converts it to end SQL, it goes into Clarity and populates that query. Okay, so here's that query, AA demo, okay? And if we take a look at it, okay, and I take a look at the end SQL, it basically builds the end SQL for me in flight. Now, one of the things that we do, that allow you to utilize complex SQL functions are, we basically convert your regular query into an inline view, okay? So what this means is you could, in theory, put something like, I don't know, something like this directly inside of your query. So now you can write complex structures, okay, and you don't necessarily have to put them within inside of your NSQL constructs. That saves a lot of grief for end users, okay? So, like I said, from here, all you need to do, now let's say you wanted to add another value to it, right? Now if I click ID, I added the column ID to it. If I come back and refresh the screen, you're going to see that it basically updates this NSQL, okay, and added it directly into that NSQL. Why did it do that? Because I've maintained the same query name. So this follows the same functionality as Zog. So Zog either creates or updates, okay? So it's very easy for me to modify this or update this directly from here because I basically utilize the Zog API to update that data back into CA PPM. Like I said, if I remove this query, right, and I run it again, it basically just takes it and updates it. If I wanted to create a new one, I would just change the name and it would dynamically create it for me here. So now I have the A demo and A demo 1. All right, I'm gonna stop for a couple of seconds here again since it's not like we have a huge amount of time left. I wanna wait and see if anyone has any, I'm gonna say not necessarily only questions, but concerns, needs that you might want to see if this will help you resolve, that we can assist you guys with. Oh, this is strange. Normally when I do the Zog webinars, I get thousands and thousands of questions. I haven't really received that many today.
Maybe people are getting really good at it.
It's very possible.
The license for the XOG Bridge tool fed, there's a question about that. So how do you download that license?
So, all right, if you want to install the web version inside of your organization, you contact Christopher Claunch, and Christopher Claunch will get in touch with the correct people with our support team for them to give you a copy so you can install it on your client machine. So there is currently no licensing fee for that, but it does require a license. So you definitely need to get in touch with us. And like I said, we provide a license for every server that it lives on. As I said, most of our licenses are both MAC address and hostname based. So, similar to the desktop version, it works with that type of licensing as well.
Nobody out there has a challenge for the to challenge the expert. Anybody have a if you're thinking that you have a little hurdle you want to overcome, go ahead and put it in the question section, and Ben will walk through it with you. And there's another question on licensing, Federico. It says, will there be a license fee in the future?
We're not currently planning on putting a license fee, but it really depends on what people are asking for and what type of functionality is being requested. But at the moment, we're not planning on it. Can we write any condition?
Yeah, okay.
Can we write any conditions to Zog, just like writing conditions in JavaScript? say, JavaScript, it follows a different process, right? Usually if you're writing conditions in a JavaScript, it's because you're querying something and you're transforming and loading. If that's the case, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we have long been enemies of gel. But one of the main reasons is because of all of the overhead that it puts on the BG engine and the limitations that gel has. So yes, we have a very simple, straightforward way to write conditions. And like I said, all of the integrations would reside outside of your BG engine.
Okay, Fed, there's a big one, big question here. One of the challenges they have flattening out all the XML files for export. To a database somewhere. There were mentions of a data extractor from CA during Rigo University. Any idea if that kind of functionality is being entertained for future versions of CA PPM?
Definitely, it's available now, but it's not free. The CA has a data extractor, but one of the things I've just showed here is how you can utilize this exactly for that. So I'm gonna come back into that particular integration that we were talking about, the data extraction that we were building, and then. Just show filters here. So here I've got a project extract, right? And I can literally say, right, as opposed to my data target being a CSV file, I can literally just come here and say, send it to a database. And as long as you provide a database location, and no, not this one. I'd have to give you another one because this one's set for a CSV. So yes, definitely possible to use this to extract and send it anywhere you want. Like I said, it could be an email, it could be an FTP, it could be a database, it could be anywhere. Next question.
Yeah, real quick, Fed. Let me just interject. Going back to the gel question, in the chat on the GoToMeeting, there's a link to the webinar replay for the one that Fed did on the necessary evil, gel. And so if you're looking to kind of dig into gel a little bit, go over to the chat and grab that link. And then the next question about SQL, Fed.
I got a question that says, will any type of SQL queries be converted to MSQL? We saw a simple query, but how about the queries with some complex joins and update statements? Well, I mean, you can't update inside of a query, or at least I don't know how. And absolutely, joins, as I mentioned before, when we covered the portion of the queries, okay. That's why we build it in an inline view, okay? So what you would want to do is you put all of your complex, I'm going to say complex, and let's not say joins because, a joint is really just a join of two tables, but it's called database functions. And you can definitely put database functions directly inside of this inline view. Works exactly like writing a view directly at the database level. So totally possible.
Let's see. Just checking all my spots for questions that people send them in here. It looks like we're all caught up on questions, Fed. And I think we have time for maybe one more if anybody has a quick one they want to send in before we let everybody go. And as a reminder while we're waiting, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take the video and we'll shorten it as much as possible by taking out any of the stuff that's not essential to the message that came across, and we'll also get answers put into all the questions so that you can read them and then we'll send that out to all of the attendees. As soon as it's ready, you'll get an email with that link. Usually takes, to be safe, we'll say a couple of days, but sometimes we have it by the next day. And at this time, Federico, we do not have any more questions that I can see.
All right. I want to thank everybody for attending. And like I said, feel free to send me or Christopher an email if you have any concerns or any needs, or if you have any questions regarding what can be done or what you need to do via XOG, we'd love to help you out. Like I said, if you guys are current XOG users, we would love to hear from you. If you have enhancement requests, issues that you may need to resolve, please feel free to send us or send support an email so we can try and make this tool a better tool for everyone to use.
That sounds great. Well, again, thanks everybody. If you have any questions, send them over. We appreciate your time. Everybody's busy, and we hope to hear from you via feedback and or email requests as soon as possible. And thanks again for your time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.